Welcome to 5 Minutes with interviews organized by ANS. Today we have senior researcher Janne Alahuhta. Hello, Janne.
Hi.
So let's start with your research interests and what you're working on at the moment.
Okay. So I'm a geographer, and I would say that it's a quite common problem with us geographers that we are interested in many things. So basically I have actually 3 different research topics that I'm working with at the moment. The first is geodiversity, which is the variation of the non-living environment. Mm-hmm. And this includes soils and rocks and hydrology and geomorphology, and how actually the geodiversity could contribute to biodiversity and also human health. The second one is that I'm fascinated is the ecosystem services and how people can actually access these different kind of services. So the basic idea behind ecosystem services is that they are benefits that we get from nature, but if we people cannot really access them, then the nature is really not providing us with nothing. So that is kind of the second topic that I'm working with. And the last one is biogeography. That is something that I really love, and this kind of broad-scale studies related to freshwater biota and also terrestrial vegetation, they are really close to my heart. Well, they are kind of quite different topics, and you may think at first sight that what are actually the connecting elements in them. But there are few. It first is the spatial scale, and then there are these kind of biogeographical methods. Mm. So I'm not really interested in, for example, in single species growing in one lake, but instead I'm interested in all the species growing in hundreds and even thousands of lakes across Northern Hemisphere and even globally. And with this kind of data sets, I'm trying to find some kind of generalities in how the species are distributed. So it's actually this kind of broad-scale patterns and mechanisms of this geodiversity, biogeography, and also ecosystem services that I'm really interested in. And the second is these kind of biogeographical methods. So we have been quite successful in implementing these kind of methods to other disciplines, such as geodiversity. And it's really been very fascinating to see that these kind of methods that we are applying on daily basis in biogeography can be so revolutionary in other fields of science. For example, it's in geodiversity.
And may I ask you if you can specify a little bit about this method?
Yeah, it's mainly like statistical methods and also kind of approaches that how you study, in this case, this kind of biogeographical phenomenon. So kind of applying those things which are a long history in this particular discipline and kind of applying those to these like geodiversity and also ecosystem services. So that is actually quite new thing.
Yeah, wonderful. Yes. Well, it's all new to me, so I'm kind of a little bit blown away by the multiplicity and multiple layers that you have in your research. That's really great. So to ask you the next question might seem a little bit simplistic, but given the complexity of your work, but still I'm going to ask it.
Go ahead.
So what kind of connections then do you draw from your own research and then the actual goals of Biodiverse Anthropocene's program?
Well, I like to work in the interface of different disciplines, as I was saying. So let's take an example. For example, in geodiversity research, there is this idea called conserving nature states, which indicates that instead of conserving individual species, we should actually conserve landscapes, which include different habitats and of course different species. So if this is true, then the geodiversity can actually have means to tackle global biodiversity loss. And also, if this geodiversity could contribute to human physical and mental health and well-being, that would also be quite remarkable.
Wonderful. Like getting to what you're describing and maybe previous interviews, I would say that more and more we're drawn by this idea of relations, multiple relations, right? So multi-species and human-environment relations.
Yeah, that seems to be the case in science nowadays, that working with this kind of interface of different disciplines and working together with different kind of scientists, it's the way to work, nowadays.
One last question then.
Okay.
I'm going to ask. So a specific episode in your research that kind of was an eye-opener for you, if there is one or any or more than one.
Well, of course there are some kind of highlights in research, but I would maybe name the people that I'm actually working with. So I have been very privileged to work with people who have been very encouraging and also positive during my career. And as you probably know that when working in science and in academia, that certain kind of disappointments, that these kind of things happen quite often. So I think that it's very important to work with good people who are positive and kind of encouraging. And I have been very lucky with my career to work with such people, and I owe a lot to them. So thanks.
That's really great to hear, actually. So let's hope that this happens more often.
Yeah. And for more people.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching us, and see you next month.